I spent 2023 recording a video course, iOS Expert. While creating that course, I learned a lot about achieving high-quality audio. The purpose of this video is to share some of that knowledge with you. This knowledge involves choice of microphone, recording space, and microphone technique. Before I present this knowledge, I'll say a few words about why you should strive for high-quality audio. You likely produce or have produced audio in various settings. I'll discuss 3 of these and why you should consider, in each of them, low-quality audio harmful and high-quality audio beneficial. Before 2020, job interviews were, in my experience, on-site. Since that year, for reasons I will leave to your imagination, many job interviews have been virtual, at least to some extent. If you're participating in a virtual interview, you're producing audio. Audio quality is not make or break in a job interview. That is, a qualified candidate with low-quality audio will always get the job before an unqualified candidate with high-quality audio. But high-quality audio can still be beneficial in the job interview setting. Companies usually interview multiple candidates for an open position. Imagine that you and another candidate are qualified and answer questions well. Imagine that your audio quality is excellent because you applied the knowledge imparted by this video. Finally, imagine that your competitor uses the AirPods microphone in an echo-filled room, resulting in terrible audio quality. Even if your interviewers haven't written any notes about audio quality, they might vaguely recall the wide audio gap between you and your competitor, subliminally coloring their relative perceptions and pushing the balance in your favor. If you're like me, you sometimes participate in work meetings using Zoom or some other video conferencing software. If you say anything during these meetings, you're producing audio. I argue that the bar for audio quality in work meetings is pretty low, but it does exist. When I say that the bar is low, I mean that the benefit of excellent audio quality versus acceptable audio quality is small. As long as your coworkers easily understand you, they are unlikely to notice or care that your audio quality rivals that of This American Life or Radiolab, 2 podcasts with impeccable audio quality. But unfortunately, some people have audio quality that is so poor that other participants in meetings struggle to understand them. Maybe the way they speak exacerbates this difficulty. My voice, for example, is monotonous, and I have a strong New England accent, sometimes causing interlocutors not to understand me. When people struggle to understand, they get frustrated and annoyed. This frustration and annoyance militate against the goals of work meetings, which may include collaboration and persuasion. I saved this setting for last because audio quality is most important in the context of content creation. Content could be a podcast, video, audiobook, or live stream. Audio quality is extremely important in the content creation setting. Your would-be consumers have many options for how to spend their time consuming content, and if your audio is bad, many would-be consumers will stop consuming your content after a few seconds and find other content that has better audio quality. If you create content, as I do, you likely share the goal of reaching as many people who can benefit from or enjoy it as possible. Low-quality audio, specifically its detrimental effect on audience size and retention, frustrates this goal. I watch a lot of YouTube. I noticed a lot of room echo in a video I watched recently. Not surprisingly, someone complained in the comments about audio quality. The creator responded that he intended to get a better microphone, illustrating a widespread misconception about audio quality. That choice of microphone is the overriding factor in audio quality. The creator's microphone was probably fine. The problem was room echo, exacerbated by suboptimal microphone technique. That said, there are certain microphones that produce poor audio quality that you should therefore avoid if audio quality is important to you. I will tell you what microphones to avoid. The question of what microphone you should use is more difficult to answer. I will recommend one. Your needs and use case may differ, so I will then describe various categories of microphone and the factors you can use to select a different microphone. There may be headsets out there that produce high-quality audio, but I've not encountered one. The microphone that you're hearing now is typical. I suspect that the audio quality of headsets tends to be low because cost and weight are typically more important design considerations for headset microphones. A uniquely bad aspect of headset microphones, with respect to sound quality, is that exhaling through your nose produces an annoying wind sound. Because of the quality and wind problems of headset microphones, I recommend that you avoid them for content creation. As I said earlier, the audio quality bars for interviews and work meetings are lower than the content creation bar, so you can get away with using a headset microphone for interviews and work meetings. Just don't exhale through your nose. I am a fan of Apple products. I own several pairs of AirPods, and I use them to listen to podcasts while doing my dishes and pruning my shrubbery. As you can hear, the audio quality of the AirPods microphone is terrible. I suspect that one reason for this is that AirPods are, by necessity, further from the mouth than a condenser or dynamic microphone can be, and the AirPods microphone therefore gets more room echo. Another possibility is that the AirPods microphone is overly aggressive in filtering out background noise, resulting in some degradation of the voice recording. I strongly recommend that you avoid using the AirPods microphone in any audio recording context. AirPods can be useful in the work meeting and interview settings, however. If you're in such a setting, you don't want audio output going to your MacBook speakers because your microphone can pick that up, resulting in echo. In interviews and work meetings, I send audio output to my AirPods, but, in work meetings, I use my MacBook microphone and, in interviews, I use my Rode condenser microphone. I thus avoid echo and achieve good or great sound quality. Reflecting the MacBook's status as a premium product, the MacBook's microphone is pretty good. Good enough for a work meeting or an interview, particularly if you don't have an external condenser or dynamic microphone. You're hearing my MacBook microphone now. Why am I putting this microphone on a slide titled Choice of Microphone, Avoid? Permit me to relate an epiphany I experienced last year. I began recording my video course, iOS Expert, with the intent to use a dynamic microphone, the Shure SM7B. I did not realize that QuickTime, which I use to record my screen and audio for most of the course, requires manual selection of audio input and that it defaults to the MacBook microphone even if a fancy microphone is attached. I also used Keynote to record slides and accompanying audio for certain segments of the course. In my experience, Keynote chose the best microphone automatically. As I was editing videos that contained both QuickTime and Keynote footage, I noticed a massive difference in audio quality between the two types of footage. The Keynote footage sounded way better than the QuickTime footage. Specifically, the QuickTime footage suffered from room echo and keyboard noise. Well into the recording process, I determined that the problem was that I hadn't selected the Shure in QuickTime, causing that app to use the MacBook microphone. When I switched to the Shure in QuickTime, the audio quality of the footage produced suddenly jumped up to the audio quality level of the Keynote footage. If you're creating content, for which, as I described earlier, audio quality is critical, I strongly recommend that you avoid the MacBook microphone. I have a theory about what causes audio produced by the MacBook microphone to suffer more room echo than other types of microphones. I estimate that the MacBook microphone is typically 46 centimeters or 18 inches from my mouth. The distance for condenser, dynamic, headset, and AirPods microphones is much smaller, typically 2.5 to 15 centimeters or 1 to 6 inches. Since the MacBook microphone is further away from my mouth, the volume of room echo, compared to the volume of my voice, is much higher. Put differently, the Shure picks up some room echo, but because of the relative proximity of the Shure, the volume of that room echo is much lower compared to the volume of my voice, making room echo less detectable for the listener. I've told you what sorts of microphone not to use. You might be asking yourself, what kind of microphone should I use? There is no one-size-fits-all answer. There are many types, brands, and models of microphones capable of producing good sound quality. That said, I am prepared to recommend a microphone that is likely a good fit if you value sound quality, convenience, and the money in your bank account. The Rode NT USB Mini. I'm using that microphone now and in most of this video. Here's why I recommend this microphone for the use cases of work meetings, job interviews, and content creation. The cost is reasonable, $99 US at time of recording. Setup is easy. Just connect the microphone to your MacBook via USB-C cable. The microphone is light enough to easily hold in talking head videos, just 585 grams or 1.3 pounds. The microphone is smaller than many competitors, about the size and thickness of 2 packs of playing cards. This small size may be desirable in videos if you're trying to avoid the visual distraction of a large microphone. There are some drawbacks to the NT USB Mini. First, as a USB condenser microphone, it has all the drawbacks of USB and condenser microphones. Later in this video, I'll describe what I mean by USB and condenser. Second, the microphone comes with a desk stand, and I consider this stand to be a drawback because the stand's presence in the box incorrectly implies that good sound quality can be easily achieved using the stand. Sitting on your desk, the stand is likely to be around 60 centimeters, 2 feet, away from your mouth, resulting in the poor audio quality you hear now. In the absence of explicit instructions like, put this stand on a 2-foot tall pile of books, not your desk, the stand represents, in software engineering parlance, a foot gun. Assuming that your use case and needs are similar to mine, I just recommended a microphone, the Rode NT USB Mini. But your use case and needs may differ. You might not consider direct sunlight insufferable, for example. In the next section of this video, then, I will describe various categories and types of microphones, as well as the advantages and disadvantages of each. These descriptions can inform your choice of microphone. If you do decide to choose a microphone other than the Rode NT USB Mini, you'll have to decide whether to get a dynamic or a condenser microphone. Both work great. I have been pleased with the output from the Rode NT USB Mini, a condenser microphone, and the Shure SM7B, a dynamic microphone. Courtesy of Sweetwater, link in the description, there are some words in this table describing how dynamic and condenser microphones differ on a technical level. But exactly how these two types of microphones work is, with respect to this video, unimportant. I will illustrate this unimportance with an analogy. Diesel and gasoline engines differ in terms of both construction and user experience. But a person deciding between the two is much more likely to consider aspects of the latter, for example, availability of refueling stations or fuel efficiency. You should consider row 2, sensitivity. Condenser microphones tend to be more sensitive than dynamic microphones. By sensitive, I mean better able to render subtle nuances of what you intend to record, for example your voice, and of what is happening in your recording space. You might be asking yourself, isn't more sensitive better? Maybe, but not necessarily. First, dynamic microphones are plenty sensitive. I recorded my video course, iOS Expert, using a dynamic microphone, the Shure SM7B, and I never detected a lack of nuance in the audio. Second, if your recording space is not ideal, meaning that there is room echo and/or intrusion of outside noise, lower microphone sensitivity might actually improve the quality of microphone output. On to row 3. By signal strength, I mean the strength of the electrical signal output by the microphone. Because of how they work, dynamic microphones have weak signal strength. The practical effect of this weakness is that dynamic microphones require a device called a preamp to increase the signal strength or gain to a usable level. For iOS Expert, I used a Cloud Lifter preamp to increase the gain from my dynamic Shure SM7B microphone. At time of recording, my Cloud Lifter retails for $155 US. I understand that a preamp can also be built into a microphone or audio interface, another device I will describe later, but I have no experience with a built-in preamp. In any event, the preamp requirement of dynamic microphones arguably represents a disadvantage with respect to condenser microphones because of the added cost and setup complexity. On to row 4. While perfecting my audio for iOS Expert, I fell down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos about, for example, differences between dynamic and condenser microphones. In one video, the creator reported that his dynamic microphone is so durable that it fell from a great height onto a wooden floor, denting the floor, but not itself being damaged. Unfortunately, I couldn't find that video while researching this video, but I did confirm that dynamic microphones have a durability advantage with respect to condenser microphones. I will quote Omitting 3 words not relevant to the point I'm making, a sentence that Julian Evans wrote for Adorama. Quote, condenser microphones containing more sophisticated electrical circuitry are generally less durable than their dynamic counterparts. End quote. Link in the description. For me, this is not a significant advantage. I never drop a microphone from a great, or indeed any, height. But this advantage might be significant for you. Microphones usually have a port for one of 2 types of output, USB or XLR. If you buy a microphone, you usually have to pick one. You're probably already familiar with USB. Your MacBook has USB ports. USB is a computer industry standard. A USB microphone connects directly to your computer via USB cable. Easy peasy. The other kind of microphone output is XLR. An XLR cable can transmit output not only from an XLR microphone, but also from many varieties of musical instrument. You can't plug an XLR microphone directly into your MacBook because it lacks XLR ports. Instead, you plug the microphone's XLR cable into, potentially, a preamp, and then into a device called an audio interface. The audio interface, in turn, connects to your MacBook via USB. You are looking at the audio interface that I used to create iOS Expert, the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. An audio interface provides some benefits. You can plug 2 or more XLR microphones into one and still have just one USB cable connected to your MacBook. An audio interface lets you increase the level, or loudness, of its inputs, though you do have to be careful not to turn that knob too high or distortion results. For iOS Expert, I settled on 75% is a good setting for the level knob. Most audio interfaces have a headphone jack, which allows you to listen to what you're recording as you record it. Monitoring, to use industry parlance, your audio as you record it can be useful to, for example, notice that someone, perhaps you, is speaking too close to the microphone. Many audio interfaces, including the Scarlett 2i2, have lights on them that tell you if the signal coming from your microphone is too weak, too strong, or just right. The Scarlett 2i2 is intended for enthusiasts and hobbyists like me. An audio interface intended for a professional recording studio would be much more featureful and expensive. There might be 10 XLR inputs, for example. Now that I've described the practical differences between USB and XLR microphones, namely the latter's need for an audio interface, I'll say a few words comparing the 2 types of microphone. A setup that includes an XLR microphone will tend to be more expensive because that setup requires an audio interface. At time of recording, the 3rd generation of the Scarlett 2i2 retails for $120 US. An XLR setup is more complex because it involves an additional device, an audio interface, and that audio interface has to live somewhere in your recording space. The big advantage of an XLR setup is that audio interfaces can accommodate many XLR inputs with just one USB cable plugged into your MacBook. For the low price of $360 US, Focusrite will sell you an audio interface, the Scarlett 18i8, that has 4 XLR ports. Connecting via USB 4 microphones to a MacBook with 3 available USB ports would be tricky. The benefit of this flexibility depends on your use case. If you're only recording yourself, there is no benefit. But if, for example, you plan to interview guests with dedicated microphones, the benefit could be significant. An ideal recording space does 2 things: block noise from outside and eliminate voice echoes within the room. Here are 3 possible recording spaces. This is the ideal recording space, an anechoic chamber. According to Wikipedia, whose description comports with my understanding, quote, an anechoic chamber is often isolated from energy entering from its surroundings, end quote. I have edited this quote for clarity and put a link to the article in the description. Anechoic chambers use foam wedges and science to minimize sound reflections, resulting in outstanding sound quality in recordings. A person could, for example, record audio with a microphone at arm's length distance and not experience the room echo that would result in less optimal spaces. According to Wikipedia, which I have no reason to disbelieve, professional recording studios are often semi-anechoic in that they have hard floors to support, for example, humans and their gear. The reason that I don't recommend that you set up an anechoic chamber for your recordings is cost. This cost varies depending on size and performance, but, by way of example, At time of recording, there is a used Hemi Anechoic acoustic sound chamber on sale at eBay for $10,000 US. The opposite of the ideal recording space is one like this that is subject to external sound and that reflects all sound within it. Avoid horrible recording spaces. If you use one for a work meeting or interview, your interlocutor may have difficulty understanding you, with concomitantly detrimental effects on your professional health. If you use a horrible recording space for content creation, potential consumers of that content will quickly abandon it, with concomitantly detrimental effects on your audience size. Your budget, if it's like mine, isn't big enough to build a professional-grade recording space, but that doesn't mean you should settle for a horrible one. Pick a room in your dwelling or office that doesn't get road noise or sounds of other occupants. Pick a room with lots of carpet and/or hanging clothes so that your voice doesn't echo. If you have a closet big enough to record in, great. I do not. Instead, I use a storage room under my house. This room is completely isolated from outdoor noise. I do sometimes hear children running or shouting above me in the house, but I usually record at times of day that the children are quiescent if not absent. Before I modified this storage room, it was quite suboptimal for recording because its walls, ceiling, and floor effectively reflect sound. So I taped towels to the walls, ceiling, and door. In combination with proper microphone technique, which I'll discuss in a moment, this primitive audio treatment results in the good audio quality you hear now. The towels and duct tape that I used for sound treatment were effectively free. This next section of the video is relevant to content creators only. If you are creating content, specifically video content, you may not want a microphone to be visible. If your content is a scripted drama, you definitely don't. The simple solution, one you should immediately reject, is simply to move the microphone far enough away from the speaker that it is out of frame. I will describe later in this video why you shouldn't do that, but, briefly, a distant microphone usually results in low-quality audio. There are two kinds of microphone that can solve this problem. One is a shotgun microphone. Using science, a shotgun microphone is sensitive mainly to sound coming in the tip of it, not to sound coming in from the sides, which could be room echo or environment noise. The whale you see now is using a shotgun microphone. I'm aware of two disadvantages of shotgun microphones. First, unless you have someone to hold the shotgun microphone, mounting one in your recording space may be more complicated than mounting a regular microphone. You may need to attach it to your ceiling, for example. Second, because a shotgun microphone is usually much further away from the speaker than a regular microphone, and a shotgun microphone is more vulnerable to room echo, sound quality may not be as good, especially indoors, notwithstanding the science. That said, shotgun microphones can and do produce great results, as demonstrated by Kyle Mathias in the video I put in the description. This next section of the video is also relevant only to video content creators who don't want a microphone in frame. Another option is the tiny lavalier microphone, which is usually attached somewhere on the speaker's body where the camera can't see it. Taping underneath clothing is common. The downside to the underclothing approach is that if the speaker moves in a way that disturbs the clothing, the rustling sound may degrade audio quality. If your hairstyle includes bangs, you can tape the lavalier underneath those, avoiding the rustling clothing problem. I myself sadly have not had bangs since I was 15. But props to Marcus Houtkrantz, video in the description, for this idea. If you do go the lavalier route, you'll face a decision, wired or wireless. Wired lavaliers tend to be less expensive, but the wire can impede the mobility of the speaker and needs to be taped down, increasing setup time. Wireless lavaliers obviously lack those annoying wires, but, unless you're willing to spend at least $1,000 US, your wireless lavalier won't have replaceable batteries, which means that the device becomes a paperweight when the battery wears out. Props to Tom Buck, link in the description, for raising this concern. I've saved the most important ingredient in high-quality audio for last, microphone technique. That technique has two components, proximity of the microphone and minimization of the plosive. I'll discuss each in turn. We have arrived at the single biggest, in my estimation, contributor to good sound quality, close microphone proximity. I could just say keep the microphone close and move on. Having toiled away at this script for several weeks, I am, on some level, keen to do so, but I won't. Instead, I'll show you why proximity matters. Imagine that this graph represents a recording of a podcast in a somewhat echoey room like my man cave. In this scenario, the microphone is 2 meters or 6 feet away from the speaker. The resulting audio is completely understandable to listeners despite the presence of room echo just above their hearing threshold. But the echo is noticeable and, in my opinion, annoying. All else being equal, if listeners have a choice between this podcast and one that doesn't have noticeable room echo, they'll pick the latter. Here is that same scenario with good microphone proximity, 5 centimeters or 2 inches. This is the distance I used for my Shure SM7B dynamic microphone while recording iOS Expert. The room echo is still present, but the proximity of the microphone to the podcaster means that the relative loudness of the vocal is much higher than that of the room echo. The relative loudness of the room echo is so low, in fact, that the loudness of the room echo is below the human hearing threshold, and the listener therefore doesn't hear that echo. You should determine the ideal proximity for your setup by experimenting, as I did. For what it's worth, Rode recommends 5 to 15 centimeters, 2 to 6 inches, for dynamic microphones and 10 to 20 centimeters, 4 to 8 inches, for condenser microphones. Link in the description. Rode notes that proximities under the recommended distances may result in muddied sound. How do you keep the microphone 2 inches, for example, away from your face? You could hold the microphone at that distance, as I did for the talking head segments of iOS Expert. But unless you're filming yourself talking, the better solution is to put the microphone on a gizmo called a boom mic arm that clamps to or screws into your desk. I use and am quite happy with the Rode PSA-1, which retails for $100 US at time of recording. You might also consider the successor to that arm, the Rode PSA-1 Plus, which retails for $130 US at time of recording. According to Tom Buck, link in the description, the Plus is superior in most respects except for its garish Rode branding. A plosive is a sound present in all human languages that is produced by an occlusion of the oral cavity followed by a puff of air. In English, plosive sounds are often spelled with a P, B, T, D, or K. The combination of a plosive and bad microphone technique is frequently the cause of bad audio quality. In videos about plosives, creators often demonstrate the problem using a specific sentence. Respecting tradition, I will do the same.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
As noted by the National Literacy Trust of the United Kingdom, link in the description, this sentence is from a nursery rhyme. As you just heard, the air from a plosive can produce a quite unpleasant sound when it hits a microphone. I'm aware of 2 ways to prevent annoying plosive sounds, one that I don't recommend and one that I do. One way is to place a physical barrier called a pop filter between the speaker and the microphone. This pop filter may be attached to the boom mic arm or to the microphone itself. I don't recommend pop filters for 2 reasons. First, in a video recording, a pop filter can potentially block the speaker's face. This blockage takes the viewer's focus away from the speaker, which, in my view, is bad. Second, a pop filter partially obscures the speaker's vision. With a pop filter between a speaker and, for example, the script he is narrating, the speaker has more difficulty seeing the script. This is also bad. Another way to prevent annoying plosive sounds, the one I recommend, is to position the microphone so that it's within the recommended proximity, but not directly in front of the speaker's mouth. Here is where I positioned the microphone for the 95% of iOS Expert that I was off camera. I never heard an annoying plosive sound during the editing process. Behold the mellifluous melody of proper mic technique.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
This concludes my knowledge-sharing session on how to achieve high-quality audio. I hope you found something in this video helpful. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. Please also let me know in the comments if you disagree with any of my recommendations or if you are aware of other audio quality tricks. My thanks to Tom Buck, Kyle Matthias, Marcus Houtkrantz, and everyone else who has shared knowledge about this subject.